Hello, hello. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year!
It's 2025. I cannot believe that.
Oh, I actually felt like a horrible cold shiver down my spine when you said that.
um, how was your holiday season?
It was nice. I just had a super chill one because I'm
Me
now at
too.
university. I get a really long winter break, so I
Great.
was having a lovely time.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I had a really quiet holiday as well. My sister did not come home for Christmas this year. She lives in a different province. So it was just myself and my parents, and um, I went over to their house on Christmas Eve and surprised them and said I was having a sleepover, and they were so happy. So I
Aww,
slept at my parents' house on Christmas Eve, and yeah, no, it was really good.
that's so nice.
Yeah. Hello, everybody in the chat. Hi, Rosie and Alfalfa and Claire. Welcome. This is the first stream of 2025, and it's been quite a while since I've streamed because I was going to stream this essay a few weeks back just before Christmas. And then, Joan, you had said, "Oh, I wish I could be there. I love that essay." And I was like, "Oh, that's too bad." And then the day came, and I kind of didn't feel like streaming. And I thought, "Ooh, I should postpone this and invite Joan to come on when she can." So here we are.
I'm so excited. It was very kind of you. Thank you. I'm
Yeah, I'm
excited.
happy to have you. So, yeah, let's dive into this essay by Deborah Tannen. I'm going to share the screen here. Okay, and then I'll adjust my sizing so that I can see what I need to see. And also, I have a mild cold, so pardon me if I have to mute to cough and stuff. But that's the way she goes. So, how's it looking for text size? Looks okay?
Yeah, that was great.
Okay, great. So, this essay is from Deborah Tannen. It was published in the New York Times Magazine on June 20th, 1993. Were you born then, Joan? I don't know what year you were
No,
born.
but
You
it's
weren't
true.
born yet.
Bye.
What year were you
No,
born?
1995.
Oh, so this is you're going to turn 30 this year.
I am. I
Ooh.
have to be a real adult now.
Yeah.
Ah,
I was 4, nearly 5 when this was published.
nice.
Okay, so wears jumpsuit, sensible shoes, uses husband's last name. Do you have anything you want to say about this before we dive in, or are you good to go, or what? What would you
I'm good to go. Yeah, this was a very formative essay for me. Like, I feel like I
like?
really remember this compared to like all the other things I've ever really read. This
Oh,
of everything.
good. Yeah, it's very good. I've actually read this essay as a video on my channel, but I thought to have some like actual in the moment discussion would be really great because it's such a good piece. Okay, some years ago, I was at a small working conference of 4 women and 8 men. Instead of concentrating on the discussion, I found myself looking at the 3 other women at the table, thinking how each had a different style and how each style was coherent. One woman had dark brown hair in a classic style, a cross between Cleopatra and plain Jane. The severity of her straight hair was softened by wavy bangs and ends that turned under. Because she was beautiful, the effect was more Cleopatra than plain. The second woman was older, full of dignity and composure. Her hair was cut in a fashionable style that left her with only one eye, thanks to a side part that let a curtain fall across half her face. As she looked down to read her prepared paper, the hair robbed her of bifocal vision and created a barrier between her and the listeners. The third woman's hair was wild, a frosted blonde avalanche falling over and beyond her shoulders. When she spoke, she frequently tossed her head, calling attention to her hair and away from her lecture. Then there was makeup. The first woman wore facial cover that made her skin smooth and pale, a black line under each eye, and mascara that darkened already dark lashes. The second wore only a light gloss on her lips and a hint of shadow on her eyes. The third had blue bands under her eyes, dark blue shadow, mascara, bright red lipstick and rouge. Her fingernails flashed red. I considered the clothes I considered the clothes each woman had worn during the 3 days of the conference. In the first case, man tailored suits in primary colors with solid color blouses. In the second, casual but stylish black t shirts, a floppy collarless jacket, and baggy slacks or a skirt in neutral colors. The third wore a sexy jumpsuit, tight sleeveless jersey, and tight yellow slacks, a dress with gaping armholes and an indulged tendency to fall off one shoulder. Quite the picture. Early 90s fashion. Um, shoes. Number 1 wore string sandals with medium heels. Number 2, sensible, comfortable walking shoes. Number 3, pumps with spike heels. You can fill in the jewelry, scarves, shawls, sweaters, or lack of them. As amused as I amused myself finding coherence in these styles, I suddenly wondered why I was scrutinizing only the women. I scanned the 8 men at the table, and then I knew why I wasn't studying them. The men's styles were unmarked. What do we think about that?
I was just thinking about how, yeah, it's notable how much time she spends describing all of these women's manners of
Mm-hmm.
dress. And it does make me think about, I worked in an office until recently. And to be fair, actually, there were a few women who are, in a weird way, I could now think of as more unmarked. But there were certainly quite a lot of women there who just dressed, I don't know, like it was both something to remark upon, but not something to remark upon. Like I could, in my head, I can conjure up the outfits they all wear, whereas the men are mostly just on a scale of like smart to casual.
Yeah. Yeah. The term
Let me
marked.
know what we said.
Oh,
Sorry.
no,
I was
go
going to say,
ahead.
let me know if you want me to take over at any point to save your throat.
Feel free if you want to. I'm happy to do whatever.
Yeah, go on. I'll do the next few paragraphs.
Okay.
The term marked is a staple of linguistic theory. It refers to the way language alters the base meaning of a word by adding a linguistic particle that has no meaning on its own. The unmarked form of a word carries the meaning that goes without saying, what you think of when you're not thinking of anything special. The unmarked tense of verbs in English is the present. For example, visit. To indicate past, you mark the verb by adding ed to yield visited. For future, you add a word, will visit. Nouns are presumed to be singular until marked for plural, typically by adding s or es, so visit becomes visits and dish becomes dishes. The unmarked forms of most English words also convey male. Being male is the unmarked case. Endings like s and et mark words as female. Unfortunately, they also tend to mark them for frivolousness. Would you feel safe entrusting your life to a doctorette? Alfre Woodard, who was an Oscar nominee for Best Supporting Actress, says she identifies herself as an actor because actresses worry about eyelashes and cellulite, and women who are actors worry about the characters they are playing. Gender markers pick up extra meanings that reflect common associations with the female gender, not quite serious, often sexual. Each of the women at the conference had to make decisions about hair, clothing, makeup, and accessories, and each decision carried meaning. Every style available to us was marked. The men in our group had made decisions too, but the range from which they chose was incomparably narrower. Men can choose styles that are marked, but they don't have to. And in this group, none did. Unlike the women, they had the option of being unmarked.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And it goes back to like the men are the default, and women are the decoration.
Yeah, that's funny as well. That thing about actress or like Dr. Ed, because it's funny. I now actually see a certain little bit coming back around of wanting to like be proud of the fact you're a woman doing that thing. So like you say, I know I'm an actress, but I think in the long run, it doesn't. I think neutral words are better in general.
Yeah, I would agree. What do you think about things like snowman, postman, manhole cover, fireman?
That's funny because actually, postman, I would say postie, and if I knew it, if I knew the person, I would call like a man the postman, and I would call the woman the postwoman. And then fire, I say firefighter. So it's kind of funny that there are these words that have successfully, and also that'd be interesting to see what it's like in various different English speaking countries. Like like chairman is the word, but I hear people say chair, like, and that's
chair.
normal now. So yeah, that thing of, and this actually is something I wrote down before I got here that maybe, well, we can talk about it now, or we can come back to it. Was the mus, like Miss Mus or Musses? And how I've been really thinking in relation to like trans stuff, how, you know, proclaiming your pronoun has become like standard in a lot of places. So why has getting rid of Miss and Mrs. not? Like, and are there tactics that we can use? Can we take a leaf out of like the trans rights activist book there to like find a way to get across the fact that it should just be Mr. and Ms, and then we don't, because again it's that marked thing. You can pick Ms to try and be unmarked,
right? But there's always going to be the question, like, is she really a Mrs. or not?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because
is she hiding something?
Yeah, you've made a choice to be a Ms and not just whichever one reflects your marital status. So again, you can't get away from that.
Rosie said, I think with firemen, people say firefighters now. In a lot of ways, we've been making things more neutral. Yeah, and that's true. Like, I know here our like people on the city council used to be called alderman. Now we say council person. Things like that.
Oh, that thing about decision as well, where she says each of the women had to make decisions about hair, clothing, makeup, that kind of thing. And it's funny because I've been thinking about this, about wanting to basically dictate my fashion choices in terms of what is the least effort. So least to think about, and comfort also. And it's funny because I feel like I end up wearing like more dresses, and they're still really comfy dresses. It's not like I'm wearing like mini you go out clubbing in or something. But there is something interesting about wanting to make less effort, wanting to spend less time thinking about it. So actually I end up doing something more feminine because it's been so ingrained into me.
Right. We perceive it as less effort because it's just what we know. So
yeah. And it's interesting with clothes because obviously, yes, not wearing makeup is less effort. There's no debate about that. But clothing, I have to wear clothes.
Yeah, of course.
What clothes I'm going to put on. And well, a dress is a whole outfit, so there is less effort in thinking about it when you only have one item of clothing to put on. But yeah, it's funny again, that thing about, yeah, it's the decision, it's the taking time out of your day to doing it. That's also a huge, it's not just the impression you're giving to the world that's the issue, it's the amount of mental burden it puts on you.
Right. Yeah, because especially like women have to like build an outfit. Like you have to have the right accessory to go with this shirt, and you have to have the right shoes to go to this pant. And like it's not so simple, like where she talks about the men. They could do that, but none of them do. They just, slacks, shirt, maybe a tie, good to go. But they're not worrying about a scarf or a shawl or earrings or what necklace or what ring or what shoes or. Yeah. Interesting. All right, I'll continue. Take the men's hairstyles. There was no marine crew cut or oily longish hair falling into eyes, no asymmetrical two-tiered construction to swirl over a bald top. One man was unabashedly bald. The others had hair of a standard length, parted on one side in natural shades of brown or gray or graying. Their hair obstructed no views, left little to toss or push back or run fingers through, and, consequently, needed and attracted no attention. A few men had beards. In a business setting, beards might be marked. In this academic gathering, they weren't. Thanks, class. There could have been a cowboy shirt with a string tie or a three-piece suit or a necklaced hippie in jeans, but there wasn't. All 8 men wore brown or blue slacks and nondescript shirts of light colors. No man wore sandals or boots. Their shoes were dark, closed, comfortable, and flat. In short, unmarked. Although no man wore makeup, you couldn't say the men didn't wear makeup in the sense that you could say a woman didn't wear makeup. For men, no makeup is unmarked.
That has just reminded me of something.
Yeah.
I just watched a video the other day of this. She's a very interesting lady. I like to watch. I've got so many people in my YouTube subscription box who are just interesting people with like like 200 subscribers.
Mm.
And there's this one lady who I found, she's quite young. I think she must only be 20, but she's basically talking about being detransitioned, but she's quite, she's not really into feminism or anything. Like her reasons for detransitioning weren't really related to like feminism or even
Right.
become more conservative. It's just whatever. But she made this really interesting video the other day that I've got it just like exploded my brain a bit. She was saying she does not like the fact that there are feminists out there that make a point of like really making a point of showing their unshaved armpits, because she says that the issue is if you politicize it too hard. So it's not just that you exist with hairy armpits,
Mm.
but you take photos where you really try and show them off, or if someone goes, oh, that's disgusting, you make even more of a point of showing them off.
Mm-hmm.
What you do is you then attach that to a feminist thing instead of making
Right.
it a neutral thing that all women can get on board with. And it's again that interesting thing of it's marked, not like not wearing makeup is marked because it's something to be remarked upon again, like whereas with men it isn't. And again, not shaving is more unusual, so it gets all these connotations which it shouldn't
Right.
have. I found that really interesting. This complicated thing of I think these things are feminist and need to be attached to feminism in a positive way, but that I can also see that being an issue, that if it's so connected to feminism that women who for a whole variety of reasons aren't going to come along on that journey don't
Right.
see it
Right.
viable for them.
Women's natural bodies, like armpit hair or whatever, should just be a thing that exists because it exists. It doesn't
Yes,
have to be a statement. That's just how our bodies come.
exactly. And it's the fact that it isn't. And also I found it interesting early on in that paragraph where she says about the conference setting, that thing of men's style is marked in certain ways, but that the group is much larger. Like it's a big Venn diagram of
Mm.
like artists or teachers or like like people in the medical field, like they might have their different modes of dress, but it'll be very consistent for men. Whereas women, there's always that extra layer of, I suppose, fashion, isn't it? And like style and looking beautiful is what the
Mm-hmm. Good point. So I asked myself what style we women could have adopted that would have been unmarked like the men's. The answer was none. There is no unmarked woman. There is no woman's hairstyle that can be called standard, that says nothing about her. The range of women's hairstyles is staggering, but a woman whose hair has no particular style is perceived as not caring about how she looks, which can disqualify her for many positions and will steadily diminish her as a person in the eyes of some. Women must choose between attractive shoes and comfortable shoes. When our group made an unexpected trek, the woman who wore flat laced shoes arrived first. Last to arrive was the woman in spike heels, shoes in hand, and a handful of men around her. If a woman's clothing is tight or revealing, in other words, sexy, it sends a message, an intended one of wanting to be attractive, but also a possibly unintended one of availability. If her clothes are not sexy, that too sends a message, lent meaning by the knowledge that they could have been. There are thousands of cosmetic products from which women can choose and a myriad of ways of applying them. Yet no makeup at all is anything but unmarked. Some men see it as a hostile refusal to please them. Women can't even fill out a form without telling stories about themselves. This is what you were just mentioning, Joan. Most forms give 4 titles to choose from. Mr. carries no meaning other than that the respondent is male, but a woman who checks Mrs. or Miss communicates not only whether she has been married, but also whether she has conservative tastes in forms of address, and probably other conservative values as well. Checking Miss or Ms. declines to let on about marriage. Checking Mr. declines nothing, since nothing was asked. But it also marks her as either liberated or rebellious, depending on the observer's attitudes and assumptions. Very good. I sometimes try to duck these variously marked choices by giving my title as doctor, and in doing so risk marking myself as either uppity, hence sarcastic responses like, excuse me, or an overachiever, hence reactions of congratulatory surprise like, oh, good for you. Do you prefer like Miss or Ms when you're doing stuff,
I
Joan?
I made a conscious choice when I was like 18 that I was going to always check ms, because I felt that, like, do you know what I mean? That's like not always. I think like teenage boys go for Mister, but
Hmm.
in like official forms that I was dealing with for work, all under 18 boys would be Master.
Yep.
So I felt like Miss was the equivalent. So I made the conscious choice to check Ms because then that means I've been consistently Ms my entire adult life. But yeah, it is a funny one where you're just like, I don't know. It's funny. I would actually be interested to know. I'm trying to think about like friends or like I don't know very many married people who are around my age, but I would just be
Mm.
interested to see if women that maybe go for Ms end up checking Mrs once they're married anyway. I'd just be really interested to know. Um and
That
that point about
is,
doctor is interesting as well.
yeah, that is interesting to me. I actually know quite a few married women just because I'm about 6 years older than you, so closer to 40 than 30. Um, I do know quite a few married straight women, and I actually have no idea what they do. And the interesting thing too is I'd say about half of the married women I know did take their husband's surname and half did not. Um, so I should maybe ask some of my married friends, are they
Mm.
Ms. or do they check Mrs.?
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know as well if there was a correlation with taking husband's
Mhm.
surname or not as well. And it has
Yeah.
made me realise, I wonder if it's because in general society is a bit less formal. Like how the only again because I worked in like healthcare settings, I was receiving forms that would have like Mr., Mrs., whatever ticked on them, but you don't really send like like even like business is so like informal. Like for
Hmm.
job interviews, I just get my full name instead of like Mustark being sent to me. So
Yeah. Yeah, I have noticed that too. Now that I'm like a real adult with like bills and shit. But nothing comes in Miss or Ms. It just is my first and last name. Um, yeah, maybe times are a changing. I don't know. Okay,
I mean,
so oh, sorry.
oh yeah, I was going to say I could do the next few.
Okay, sure.
All married women's surnames are marked. If a woman takes her husband's name, she announces to the world that she is married and has traditional values. To some, it will indicate that she is less herself, more identified by her husband's identity. If she does not take her husband's name, this is too marked,
Mm-hmm.
seen as worthy of comment. She has done something. She has kept her own name. A man is never said to have kept his own name because it never occurs to anyone that he might have given it up. For him, using his own name is unmarked. That thing about it going without saying makes me think about stuff to do with like mothers wanting to not just have a job but to have a very successful high flying career. Like
Yeah.
there's no question that male CEOs will have a bunch of kids. Like it just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
come up. Yeah, that's why I like this essay so much. I was like, it can obviously she talks about very specific things in it, but it could apply to like
So many
everything.
different things. Yeah, a
But
high-powered male CEO with lots of kids is totally unmarked, but a high-powered female CEO who has kids is 100% marked, and you know that people will think like she's put her career first. How good of a mother can she be? But no one would say that about Elon Musk.
no, yeah, and then on the opposite side, if a man has no kids in order to concentrate on his career, like
Mm,
there's again no question about that. Whereas we're hearing so much about single cat ladies at the moment, like
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, great point. Yeah, there are like a man is not a lonely cat man. A man can be a bachelor for as long as he wants, and they'll even use the word bachelor for a man in his 60s or whatever. Like, yeah,
we'll be spinsters.
yeah, and what will be spinsters, regardless if you're 19 or 90, you're a spinster if you're unmarried. It's so crazy.
Oh yeah, speaking of yes, married. A married woman who wants to have her cake and eat it too may use her surname plus his with
Hmm.
hyphen, but this too announces her marital status and often results in a tongue-tying string. In a list, Harvey O'Donovan, Jonathan Feldman, Stephanie Woodbury McGilcuddy, the woman's multiple name stands out. It is marked. Again, that's an
Hmm.
interesting thing that by now those women have now had kids. So actually, I think there's a lot more people with like the double surnames now. So
Oh, yes. I wanted to share something insane I saw the other day. Um, so at work, I had a client come in for an intake who's, oh my God, this is crazy. It's not really related to this, but their parents both had double surnames. So like their dad was like John Smith Doe, and their mom was like Jane Johnson Brown. Okay. The kid got all four names. The kid was like Stephen Smith Doe Johnson Brown. 4 hyphens. That's crazy. Why would you do that to your child?
that is silly. It's funny because I saw people saying that like it would work if you then have that situation to have like the mother's name and the father's name. But it's funny because there is then still two families whose names don't factor into it, and of course the fact that all of our surnames eventually lead back to a man, even if we change things.
Yeah.
So I can't remember who it was. I saw someone saying about that she changed her surname to be something like Jane Child, like
Right.
as in her mum's called Jane, so took her mother's first name as a
Yeah,
surname. So
like
I found
the Icelandic tradition of like daughter or son.
yeah,
But that is interesting too because like I have well in the 60s and 70s there was like a movement of women creating their own last names. Because it's always patriarchal. And then I've also seen women like, "Oh, I'm going to change it to my mother's maiden name." And it's like, "Okay, but that was her father's name and that was his
yeah.
father's name." And
That's the bit that I don't quite get, and I don't know. I'm a bit funny about names that I'm really like. I almost feel the same as like, you know how you shouldn't pick your own nickname because that's cringe. I even do feel like you probably shouldn't pick your own name, like, and that you shouldn't change your surname when you get married. I know that's maybe crazy, but I don't know. So I've got this really weird thing about like I feel like this is just my opinion. I don't really care. Anyone can do what they want with their own name. But in terms of the fact that we are all stuck with, as far as we go back, a man's name, the damage has been done. Like we can't really get around that
yeah.
fact. If you want to pass on a different name, like I could say that if I had a child, then that child would have my surname, even though that's my father's surname.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's I don't know.
Names are interesting too when it comes to children. I think it is insane that children are given their father's surname when all he did was ejaculate.
Well, also that's again with the whole like what's marked and unmarked. I always think about like people going after single mothers and no one's got a word to say
About single
well,
fathers.
about single fathers, unless there's a lot people have got a lot of things to say about like black fathers that leave their family, but that obviously that's bringing us because the complicating factors like race and class into it. But in general, people have got a lot more to say about single mothers who are the
Yep.
ones actually rearing the children. So it's
Yep. Or
oh
if they
yeah,
do have
a lot
something to
of
say
women.
about single fathers, it's how admirable and wonderful it is that he's the single father. But they would never say that about a woman.
Yeah.
What were you going to point out?
Yeah.
Something in the chat?
I was just thinking people are saying in the chats about that different cultures have got different attitudes towards names and taking names and what people's names are. I know that obviously this is again sort of a I guess Western thing of like having surnames in this kind of way. So again, that would be interesting. I suspect that no matter what the tradition is, I think most of them end up being pretty sexist because the only different like traditions with regards to giving names involve like really sexist societies where women don't even have
I
first
mean,
names, they just have a family name. So
Romans,
anyway.
Spartans. Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. I know the same. People who grew up with single mothers only have their mother's name on their birth certificate. I've seen that a lot.
In the UK, if your parents aren't married, you have to ask for the father to be put on there, or the mum has to
Interesting.
ask. So, which again adds interesting stuff with regards to like how easy it is to get away from again like this question, this is going down a tangent, but like that thing of like, even if you do wish to have a child with a man, it is wiser not to marry him, because if anything does go wrong, it's a lot easier to have him not see that child if he's not on the birth certificate.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to make that happen is by not being married to him. So
Yeah. And I've also, somewhat related, I've also seen women who are married and having kids and choose to change their last name to their husband's last name. And I've seen or heard women say, well, I want to have the same last name as my kids. Well, give them your last name then. But a husband would never stand for that.
that's so interesting. I hadn't even thought about that. I think so much about women taking or not taking their husband's surname. I didn't even think about like giving the kids the father's surname, even if mum keeps her own.
Yeah, that's pretty much always the case.
Interesting.
The kids get the dad's name. It's like, well, I changed mine because I want to have the same last name as my kids. Did not even consider giving the children her last name, though. Like, it's so weird.
It's very interesting.
Oh, this is interesting from Cassandra. I have my dad's last name even though we've never met and I have zero to do with his family. Felt pretty awkward that I didn't share any of my immediate family's name. See?
That's, yeah.
Yeah, the kids should have the mother's surname. Anyway. Where are we? Okay. I have never been inclined toward biological explanations of gender differences in language, but I was intrigued to see Ralph Fassold bring biological phenomena to bear on the question of linguistic marking in his book, The Sociologistics of Language. Fassold stresses that language and culture are particularly unfair in treating women as the marked case because biologically it is the male that is marked. While two X chromosomes make a female, two Y chromosomes make nothing. Like the linguistic marker S, ES, or ESS, the Y chromosome doesn't mean anything unless it is attached to a root form, an X chromosome. Developing this idea elsewhere, Fassold points out that girls are born with fully female bodies, while boys are born with modified female bodies. He invites men who doubt this to lift up their shirts and contemplate why they have nipples. Great point. In his book, Fassold notes a wide range of facts which demonstrate that female is the unmarked sex. For example, he observes that there are a few species that produce only females, like the whiptail lizard. Thanks to parthenogenesis, they have no trouble having as many daughters as they like. There are no species, however, that produce only males. This is no surprise, since any such species would become extinct in its first generation. Fassold is also intrigued by species that produce individuals not involved in reproduction, like honeybees and leafcutter ants. Reproduction is handled by the queen and a relatively few males. The workers are sterile females. Since they do not reproduce, Fassold says, there is no reason for them to be one sex or the other, so they default, so to speak, to female. I have to cough, sorry.
I find that's such an interesting point, and it feels a bit related to that whole, like the idea of saying that, like, creating a male god when women are the ones that create life. Like, it somehow slots into that sort of idea to me of, like, is patriarchal reversal the phrase I'm looking for, or does that mean something else?
Yeah. I heard, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Mary Daly or if it was Rosalind Miles who wrote a quote that I'm going to paraphrase it really badly here, but it was along the lines of the creation of a male god put biology on its head by making a male mother, essentially. And I'm currently reading When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone. It is really interesting. It's all about the worship of female goddesses and how and when that change to male gods came. It's quite interesting.
So cool.
Okay. Fassold ends his discussion of these matters by pointing out that if language reflected biology, grammar books would direct us to use she to include males and females, and he only for specifically male reference. But they don't. they tell us that he means he or she, and that she is used only if the referent is specifically female. This use of he as the sex indefinite pronoun is an innovation introduced into English by grammarians in the 18th and 19th centuries, according to Peter Mulhauser and Ramhar in Pronouns and People. From at least about 1500, the correct sex indefinite pronoun was they, as it still is in casual spoken English. This was 1993, remember? There were no individual theys back then. In other words, the female was declared by grammarians to be the marked case. Writing this article may mark me not as a writer, not as a linguist, not as an analyst of human behavior, but as a feminist, which will have positive or negative, but in any case, powerful connotations for readers. Yet I doubt that anyone reading Ralph Fesseld's book would put that label on him. I discovered the markedness inherent in the very topic of gender after writing a book on differences in conversational style based on geographical region, ethnicity, class, age, and gender. When I was interviewed, the vast majority of journalists wanted to talk about the differences between women and men. While I thought I was simply describing what I observed, something I had learned to do as a researcher, merely mentioning women and men marked me as a feminist for some. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's still the case now. You couldn't you couldn't speak about anything pertaining to women without being like a dirty feminist.
Yeah, and it is yeah, it's something I hear quite a lot, even sort of like quite like surface level, like sort of even like liberal feminist discussions about this, is that men, particularly in the art world, like men make work about their lives and people go, wow, great art. Women make art about their lives and people go, oh, womany things, like it's not
Women's
allowed to
art.
have that, like, exactly, it's not allowed to have that like universality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's another one where like intersectionality plays into it in kind of interesting ways, and it's interesting to see like
just using the art example, like men make art, women make women's art, and people of color make folk art.
Yeah, and I also find it interesting in like, I don't know, I wrote far too much for my recent essays for uni, but we had to write about exhibitions we saw, and I found it really interesting that there was a guy who I saw who he made a lot of art that was really specifically about, I've totally forgotten what country he's from. He's from some North African country, so he made a lot of art that's like in the vein of like traditional
Like
art from
his
his
culture.
home country. But also then made like video installation work that was just like kind of sexist.
Of course.
But he did a big video essay at the start of it where he was like, oh, and I'm talking about the universality of beauty and what beauty means. And I wanted to like poke my own eyes out about it. It was so like, I don't know, something funny about like almost the way to escape that trap for him of being put in the like racist box of like, oh, he's a black man, not about being black. He kind of had to be sexist in the way that like Picasso is. I don't know.
Yes,
Oh, that's
yes.
probably not as bad as Picasso, but like, do you know what I mean? Like something really funny about gaining access to that. Like, and it's funny because there are women who I do think sometimes manage to like get out of that box, but again, they do it by doing what great men do sometimes. Even, like Artemisia Gentileschi, I would argue the stuff she makes is very in the vein of like fancy male artists of like her contemporaries, but because she was a woman, even when some of her work I do think is very explicitly obviously feminist, but a lot of it is just like fantastic paintings, and yeah, it still gets put in that like feminist box, which I shouldn't feel sad about, because I suppose it's relating to that video I said about the body hair thing of like it doesn't, I don't know, it's complicated, isn't it? I want it all to be feminist, but I also don't want it all to be feminist. I don't know what I want.
Yeah. Oh, this is good too. Men do art, women do crafts.
Tell me about it. Oh my god, I'm in such a rock and hard place of like,
Go off,
I love
queen.
crafts and I want to do crafts, but I'm also like, what if I want to spend all day doing 3D printing and making robots also? Or yeah, I don't know, it's a really funny thing. I was
Must be
thinking about
trans.
Yes, I'm gender fluid. Yeah, this got me thinking about how like we're encouraged to write about artists we're inspired by, and I look at the women I'm inspired by, and they're all quite different. And then the men I'm inspired by, I can't find women doing what they're doing. And maybe they
Right.
exist out there. They're just a lot harder to find because in order to get to the level of acclaim, you need to have the advantages that come from being a man,
Mm,
like having the boys club be open to you to enable you to. And that's the thing that like these are men in their 40s at the top of their game. The women who doors are now opening for are going to be in their 20s. It's not going to be another 20 years before those women have like built up enough
right.
uh career to be making work like these guys are. So I found it just an interesting thing of me wanting to be like, I only want to be inspired by women, but actually if I only let myself be inspired by women, I'm missing out on almost like taking knowledge from men. I don't know, that they are allowed to develop because they don't have the societal handicaps that women do. I don't know. I don't know. Big tangent there, sorry. Let's continue on with the essay.
When I wrote a book devoted to gender differences in ways of speaking, I sent the manuscripts to 5 male colleagues, asking them to alert me to any interpretation, phrasing, or wording that might seem unfairly negative towards men. Even so, when the book came out, I encountered responses like that of the television talk show host who, after interviewing me, turned to the audience and asked if they thought I was male bashing. Leaping upon a poor fellow who affably nodded in agreement, she made him stand and asked, "Did what she said accurately describe you?" "Oh, yes," he answered. "That's me exactly." "And what she said about women, does that sound like your wife?" "Oh, yes," he responded. "That's her exactly." "Then why do you think she's male bashing?" He answered with disarming honesty, "Because she's a woman and she's saying things about men." Even though that's it exactly. So she's a woman and she's saying the truth.
That's such a funny sentence. Just she's a woman, she's saying things about men. Oh, how dare
Even
she?
though he agrees that what she's saying is exactly the case.
Well, and also, what did you say? Oh, yeah, it's just about differences in ways of speaking. There's not even. Oh, do you know what I mean? It's not even necessarily
Yeah.
a value judgment. It's just noticing trends. Like, I'm
Mhm.
sure if you wanted to, you could be quite sexist and put a. And isn't that great that we're so different spin on things? Like,
Yep.
really funny.
To say anything about women and men without marking oneself as either feminist or anti feminist, male basher or apologist for men, seems as impossible for a woman as trying to get dressed in the morning without inviting interpretations of her character. Sitting at the conference table musing on these matters, I felt sad to think that we women didn't have the freedom to be unmarked that the men sitting next to us had. Some days you just want to get dressed and go about your business. But if you're a woman, you can't, because there is no unmarked woman.
It's such a good essay.
It is. Yeah, it's so good. Um, 1993, and has much changed 32 years later?
No, like that's also funny is because we were talking about the intricacies of like language, and I think I will say that like I do think gender neutral language has gotten better, but at the end of the day, that simple fact of being marked is still the case.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, it's funny. It made me think about two extra things as we were reading it again. That thing about some days you just want to get dressed and go about your business, but if you're a woman, you can't. Like, and how that factors into what we're seeing with so many young women wanting to identify away from
Mhm.
being women, of like they are shown the options, which I suppose we could like reduce down to almost like the Madonna Hall complex if we wanted. Like,
Yep.
it's very narrow bandwidth of what womanhood is allowed to be. And if you step outside that, you can exist, but it's going to be harder. So it's just let's opt out. And it also made me think about, yeah, again, with like wanting to make art or whatever, I sometimes agonize over like, oh God, is this not even is this feminist enough, but like, is this not sexist? Or am I gonna cause myself problems with this? Like
Mm.
I I find slapstick really funny.
Yep.
And there's something about, and it's funny, I actually had a really good chat with a friend who she makes theatre, and she was saying that say you wanted to do anything with nudity on stage, her line for that changes whether it's an all-female audience or not. And I was like, I think that's a really good point. Like the audience affecting things too. But this
Yeah.
thing of me thinking like, oh, sometimes though it is just really funny if I'm like trying to walk from one side of the stage to the other and my trousers fall down. And I don't want to have a big debate in my head about whether it's a good idea or not for me to show my ass on stage.
Right. What's the message that's being sent?
None of my male counterparts are having that question.
Correct.
Or even like makeup on stage. Like I never wear a full face or anything. And if I do wear makeup, I purposefully like apply it badly. Like, because I used to do a thing where I'd come out in my pants and I'd put on more and more and more clothes. So I end up a Michelin man. And like my thing was, well, I want to give that idea of like glamour, but I'm not going to do that. So I just did really like big blue eyeshadow. Again, it's that thing of effort. Like when I see the men who also wear makeup for their performances, they're applying it badly in 5 minutes. So it's like, okay, I'll do that then. Like,
Right. I see. Yeah.
This is what the men get to get away with on stage. I'll do it too.
Very good. Very good.
Ooh, better things.
Yeah, Enlightened Female said, in some ways it has become better, but in other ways it has become much worse. I'm just curious what people think how it's become better. Because I think I think gendered expectations of women's physical performance is worse now than it was in the 90s. I think in the 90s there was a lot more options for girls. Like there was yes, there was super feminine women and girls, but there was also like the grunge movement, punk rock movement, skater girl movement. Like it was different. Whereas like now it's like Sephora, Stanley Cups, Instagram baddie. Like there's only that. And also when it comes to the gender stuff, it's like if a girl doesn't like that stuff, then she's not a girl.
I've got a maybe slight counterpoint to that.
Okay.
What you're saying from the 90s, although I think things like tomboy and like the grunge movement are like healthier, like this is why I'm going to say it in a mean way, boxes. Whereas now I think there is only the boxes that we now have are so small that if you opt out entirely, you're almost a bit freer because there is now no box to go into. You're either doing hyperfemininity
right
or not. Like those are the two options. So even though you're still marked by not doing hyperfemininity, it's a bit freer. But I think that unfortunately for most women, not most women, I think there are a lot of women that just exist in jeans and a hoodie and don't really think about feminism. I think I'm maybe thinking of particularly like younger, more online people. But yeah, that instead of just letting go of that, they then move themselves into the trans box, which comes with its own like subculture and that sort of thing. What Enlightened Female is saying there, yeah, about gender neutral language, I do agree with, and I do think that's an interesting thing. And I was thinking about lads mags as well. They don't, but I suppose internet porn's replaced it and is significantly worse.
Yeah.
Okay, take that back. Yeah, okay, take that one back.
That's okay. Yeah, a ballistic also followed up when I said if you don't perform all that stuff, then you're not a girl. And she said you're either not a girl or you're a pick me.
I mean, harsh but fair. And then also, oh gosh, oh my god, there's so much stuff. Okay. Enlightened Female, because this is a quick one. I think G Strathmore above, that's really interesting. So Enlightened Female says less labels but less community. And I think, yeah, that's a really nice, succinct way of, that's really, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, the lack of community is sad because again, it's all online. Yeah, mixed feelings about supporting younger women. That's interesting. Would you say more about that within the character limit you have, G Strathmore?
Also, this comment from Claire. Growing up, I'd basically have meltdowns when having to get ready to go out because my mother would constantly tell me my clothes were too sexy or too boyish, but never give my male cousins a second look.
Oh.
Yeah, I had. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I am always aware sometimes of what an unusual upbringing I've had. And in some ways, what an unusual children me and my sister were. That like my mum was said to me that like there was a period where all of her almost like the friends of hers that were the parents of my friends all were going, "Oh, she's terrible. She's doing this. She's doing that." And then mum would be like, "Oh, my kids are fine." And same thing of like, my parents just like let me get on with it. Like they were really supportive of me being like a real tomboy,
Yeah.
quite young, and like,
I
yeah.
I had an interesting experience with this kind of stuff as a child. Like I'm the firstborn daughter, and my mom really wanted me to be like this really feminine, cute little girl. She definitely put me in frilly dresses, always wanted to put my hair in rollers to curl it overnight. And I would have like fights with her and like crying meltdowns because I didn't want my hair curled. And then as I got to be older, like 10, 11, 12, I was more interested in sports and that kind of thing. And my parents were okay with that, but my mom always did kind of want me to wear dresses or skirts or be feminine in some way. Um, but then as a teenager, when I came out to them, I was 2 weeks after I turned 15 is when I came out to them. Um, they were actually really supportive of me when I came out, which shocked me because they were Catholic. And after I came out, like I got interested in like punk rock and like the alt scene, and they were very supportive in that. Like it's very interesting that I was like pushed into femininity as a smaller child, but as I got older and expressed interest in other things, they actually were supportive of that, which I'm grateful for. They let me shave my head. I had a mohawk. I had piercings. Yeah.
Do you, obviously this is totally speculative, but do you think if you hadn't come out at that age,
Mhm.
but you had wanted to be interested in all of those things, they would have been supportive, almost like they wanted you to be feminine in every way, including like straight, have, have a husband and have kids, and then when that
Right.
obviously was never going to happen, they sort of let go of all of those hopes? That's, I'm
Hmm.
assuming a lot of things there, but
Yeah, I mean that's certainly possible. I don't feel like I was ever really. I mean, obviously we all grow up in a heterosexist patriarchy, but I don't feel like I was ever really pushed by them, or if you want to call it socialized by them, that like it would be my life would be, two kids, white picket fence, husband.
mm,
I think it was assumed that I would marry a man and have children because that's what women do, but I don't feel like it was really ingrained in me that would be the case. I don't know. Those are good questions to think about. I'll have to think about that.
hmm.
um, let's see
Reading what
here.
Strathmore's saying.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for part 3 of 3.
yeah, me too. Claire says, thankfully, my grandmother was like your mother, Joan.
Nice. Nice
Hmm.
grandma.
Ooh,
But
this is
that's
interesting.
interesting.
Being straight and gender nonconforming was hard on my teens. People expect you to either grow out of being a tomboy and get out of the closet. Everyone, even now, everyone thinks I'm a lesbian. Interesting.
I feel like I, again, like chill family, I feel like I got a lot of these assumptions. But I just kind of said to my, because I'm bisexual, I was like, I'm not gonna bother coming out if I have a long-term girlfriend where it's worth mentioning. That's where my family will find out, because I didn't like the idea of some big coming out. It just, yeah. So, but I remember getting lots of questions because, well, this is something I've been reflecting on recently, that I feel like my homosexual attraction was like repressed or suppressed or whatever, and that actually that also affected my heterosexual attractions. It kind of both got repressed because of one being, it was like if I opened the floodgates to any of my sexuality, it would all have to come out. But
Right.
because I showed no interest in men, there were lots of questions about, oh, well, you must be into women then. I don't know. Yeah, just something weird about like actually being single for as long as I was got me a lot of scrutiny.
Mhm.
I think maybe it's people wanting to know, like maybe if I was like, oh yeah, I'm bisexual, or if I had been um in a relationship with either sex, there would have been no questions. But yeah, that's such an interesting thing about. That's also
Yes.
an interesting question that they expect you to grow out of being a tomboy. I Do you feel like um that's still a pressure for like gender non-conforming lesbians? Like you're still expected to start being feminine, or I don't know,
Mm, I don't know either. Um,
because it feels like like the butch lesbian is like obviously a known
yeah,
stereotype is to archetype. Is that a better
yeah,
word?
yeah, yeah.
And obviously that can get you hated and discriminated for, but it's also like a known quantity.
Huh. Yeah, I feel like I don't know. That's a really good question. I'm a little stumped by it.
I don't know if you listen to Stone Butch Disco, but their most recent
I
episode
don't.
kind
It's
of
funny you mentioned this though, because my good friend does, and she mentioned today. She mentioned the most recent episode discussions.
yes, you gotta. Oh, it's great. Oh, I love it. I was devastated when it all got taken down because they wrote there was this beautiful stuff that there's two of them now. I think it was Rachel was the one. It used to just be just her. She wrote this amazing stuff and it ended with female is a starting point, and I was like, that's such a good phrase to use when trying to like reach out to like people sucked in by the gender identity stuff. But anyway, no, the most recent episode she was talking, yeah, about this whole thing of like um oh, I can't get into it. It's too really. You should say
I
into it. It was yeah that butch lesbians you might get hate for it, all this, all that, but it's a known quantity. People that was what she was saying, that basically people are a bit confused by her, and then she says, "Oh, I'm a lesbian," and then they go, "Oh, I get it." Like, and
interesting perspective here because I'll just my friend when she texted me about it today, her she just mentioned that she was listening to the episode, and then her next sentence was, "The whole episode was a damn nightmare, and I'm disappointed."
oh, interesting.
Mm,
Ooh, okay. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, so I am only halfway through. So I'd be so interested to know what the yeah, what the
yeah, two different takes on it for
yeah.
sure.
I just like listening to it because obviously I am bisexual, but there are things like,
Mhm.
oh my god, this again such tangent, but they were talking about like they were talking about like their sexual urges when it comes to like engaging with women, and that I've always had this weird like issue within myself, which again led me to thinking that I wasn't allowed to be a woman, of feeling like my desires are too male like, or like the activities I want to engage in, that's what I
Ugh.
do. And obviously that's totally wrong. I'm a woman, I want to do that, therefore that's a female thing to want to do. Not all females, just some of us, but that's a thing some of us want to do. And them talking about it is like so reassuring and nice. Um yeah. So I yeah, it's such a it's yeah, I like it as a podcast because it's both got experience in it that I really relate to, and I find that really helpful, and the experiences that are obviously so different from mine, because also her talking about being in academia, like,
Mhm.
so interesting. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you think about it. I've just noticed G Strathmore has finished the
Yes,
thread.
let's go there. So she says, I'm trying to support a young woman artist who I had thought was a lesbian. Turns out she's bi, I guess, and now has a boyfriend. I was doing her favors from the perspective of helping her build her art business. But since she got a boyfriend, she hasn't made art, and now suddenly seems to be able to mount her own art. Or now suddenly seems to be able to mount her own art, needs a man to do it. So now I'm reconsidering my support. I'm not sure what I should do. Withdraw support? Have a conversation? Is this about her distraction with the boyfriend? I feel like it would end up being me, the evil feminist, or something.
That's really hard.
I mean,
Mm.
I don't know. You don't need to stop supporting a female artist. What do you think, Joan?
Well, I think the thing is, if you were supporting her to in her making her art, and now she
Right.
isn't making art, there's nothing for you to support anymore. Like, I know that sounds horrible, but that's kind of, for me, that's how I view it. Like,
Mhm.
Obviously it's like a smaller thing, but like, you know, I try and platform like women artists when I can. And it's like, well, if she was to stop making art because she's now like, I don't know, like obviously who knows what this lady's particular situation is, but if she's like, you know, given up on career aspirations because she's sort of gone for, you know, I don't know, like whatever that dynamic is in that relationship that's made her stop doing that, then
Yeah.
there's no support anymore. Um, I suppose also the question is how close you are with her on like a friendship level. That feels like something different. Um,
Mm. This
but
is
yeah,
just one of
it's just
many examples of promising young women who I seem to witness in real time getting distracted by men or personal grooming. Right. I
oh,
understand that.
yeah. I've got a friend who I say friend. Look, the relationship's complicated. Let's not go there. But the point being,
Yeah.
she wants a kid, and that's cool, but her boyfriend is not like he's a bit of a man child. And I kind of said that to her. I was like, if you really, really, really want kids, is this the person you want to be having them with? And it is just sad to me that like I don't I don't know if that's gonna go in. And like she is very talented, but obviously, you know, quite young, like, you know, as we all do, we all need a few like we all need a decade to finish cooking or whatever and get
Mm.
good in our careers. So it's just something of like, oh yeah, like mm. Uh, yeah. I'd say it depends how close you are with her, G. And that, but that is interesting. The whole thing of yeah, like supporting women. I'm finding that it is really a dynamic being on this art course because obviously I'm nearly 30 and most of my classmates are like 18, 19, 20. And so I feel this like bit of responsibility of like if I hear any of them give like the smallest whiff of feminism, I'm like, chase that, follow that. Um, and I just sort of and if they're sort of saying or doing things that I not not just are like are actively anti-feminist, then I just sort of ignore it. I don't, you know, I suppose that's it. You can uh I'm so sleepy, I'm so sorry. What am I trying to say? You can be you don't have to be discouraging. It's almost like carrot but no
Mhm,
stick.
mhm.
That's what I mean. There you go.
Yeah. So sorry. I have a person from work contacting me. Ugh.
Ugh, go away.
No. Leave me alone. um. Yeah. I mean. Mm, I think we've probably all experienced, like, whether it's an artist we like or an actual friend or someone in our family or whatever who gets a boyfriend and then like forgets their entire life except for their boyfriend. I think we've probably all experienced that.
Yeah, I find that really alien. I don't understand. I don't understand.
Me
Um,
neither.
yeah, because I just feel like when I wasn't in a relationship, I would spend time chilling by myself at home. And now I spend time chilling with a partner at home. And I still have the exact same number of hours in the week that I'm out and about doing stuff with people. Like, I don't,
Mm.
that's what I find so weird. Like, how you, um, that I was about to say something that was going to sound so callous. Like, how can you have not had enough of them? That's not what I mean. Just like,
Well, yeah, like you still have a
that person's
life. Like
there, exactly. And that
there's
person's
more
always
to
there. That
life
person's
than
always in your house. Like, it's not
what
like
are
they're
you
going to go,
doing?
they're not good. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny. Again, yeah, talking about podcasts, like, well, I don't know. I do like the Red Femme podcast, even when I disagree with them about some things. But like, they were having intense chats about like weird feminine dynamics, like social dynamics. That I'm like, with them talking about it, I was like, oh, that's what was going on in secondary school that I like didn't understand.
Yeah.
And
I've never listened to them either.
it's a good one. I liked it being in the UK because there's so many like, you know, gender critical podcasts or whatever out there that are like very America focused. So I'm just going, I'm getting nothing out of this because it's so like I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. It's funny the
Interesting.
understanding thing that Yeah, they talk about this idea of femininity. I'm gonna get some names mixed up. Sheila Jeffries.
Yeah.
She talks about femininity as being like performing submission,
Yep.
whereas on Red Femme, they agree with that analysis, but they also talk about it about become empty vessel, so that you will just become whatever. So very specifically, you'll be an empty vessel, so that when you get into a relationship with a man, you take on all of his interests and his
Yeah, of
priorities.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I wonder if that's a factor in it. That again is like one of these things that like feels alien to me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm very thankful for my lovely parents. Just I've got a breadwinner mum and a stay-at-home dad, which I didn't realize was quite so unusual. And I wonder if that has really affected how I almost like prioritize myself in my own life.
That's interesting. So until I went to school, until I was 6, I had a stay-at-home mom and my father worked. And then when I was 6, my younger sister was born, and my mom was still a stay-at-home mom for the first year of my sister's life. And then so I was 7. My mom went to work and my dad was a stay-at-home dad with my sister until she went to school. So I've had a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's interesting. The swap, I guess.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, it is a little interesting because, like I said, like my formative years, like age 1 to 7, or birth to 7, I was home with my mom, and then my sister from birth to age 6 was home with our dad. And my sister is a highly feminine professional makeup artist, heterosexual, like, and I'm not butch. I'm not feminine. I exist. I don't perform femininity, but I also don't perform masculinity. Like I'm just whatever. And I wonder, yeah, it's just interesting to think about the ways that like two people raised by the same parents can be so different.
That isn't. I'm so sorry. I'm just allowing through this message into the chat from Nat Hat. My jaw is on the floor. This stream has taken a wild turn.
Wait, her most recent message here? This one?
I can't
Okay,
even.
I'm at the boyfriend part, and yes, for real. My former friend who encouraged her gender nonconforming sister to castrate herself claimed that actually anal sex is feminist because we don't risk pregnancy because her boyfriend told her. God. Anything a man tells you, don't listen to him because he's only doing it for his own benefit and gain. Ugh.
I have no words. If this was a video stream, you'd see me just like
Yeah.
giving like an 1,000-yard stare right now.
Men are depraved.
I know NHS guy. Oh, I might know. All right, I'm gonna look like an idiot. Maybe it wasn't full on NHS guidance, but there is basically stuff where, yeah, like there's like public health information out there saying that
Mhm.
no, anal sex is actually really bad for women.
Hmm. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Ew.
Okay.
It's feminist because you don't risk pregnancy. Those things are not related in any way.
I'm just like, okay, look, let's keep it PG, but there's a lot of things a man and a woman who love each other very much can do in bed that don't involve either anal sex or risking pregnancy, right? Like I don't. Uh...
I have a crazy thing that happened in my life where I have or had a friend who was an out lesbian for a long time, and then in the last year has decided actually she's bisexual. Actually, she's going to open her marriage to her wife so that she can sleep with men. And actually, her preferred encounter with men is anal sex. And it's been wild.
Well, that is interesting. I am. It, yeah, it's just interesting the sort of 180, isn't it? I'm very like, oh, live and
Like,
let, we all have our own wishes in life, but I
yeah,
am just what?
yeah, like you were a lesbian separatist radical feminist for
Oh,
like
right, like
11 years.
oh, I didn't even realize that she had
Oh,
like
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Was
like
members of like
political
lesbian
opinions like that.
organizations. Oh yeah. Like lesbian political activist organizations. And then a year ago decided she's bi and she has to open her marriage to her wife and told me she since January of last year, and this occurred in August, that she has slept with more than 10 but less than 20 men, which I assume to mean 19. And I'm just like, what exactly transpired here? What on earth?
It's the 180. It's like I get it. There's make up for lost time or whatever, but I just it's yeah, I didn't realize she had those political opinions. That also
Oh
sort of
yeah.
uh, an extra interesting layer. Oh, I'm okay. I'm not going to sit here and psychoanalyze your friend on your
Well,
stream, but
and
that
then also
like,
when I had a question and I was like, okay, but like, wait, what? um, decided that my having a question was absolutely devastating to her, and the friendship had to be over because of that.
oh yeah, that says a lot. The fact that
Yeah,
it
we were
couldn't
friends
hold
for
a bit of
a
questioning.
decade.
Oh, crazy! Because it's like if it was just like, oh well, we can get into it as much as you want, but you know what I mean. Like if it was,
Yeah.
oh, I realized I am actually bisexual. Okay, that's one thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what I said. I
Like,
straight up said, like, I actually don't really care what you're doing in your life. I care that you've presented yourself as one thing to my face and you've made me believe that we have this shared understanding of our existence in the world as lesbian separatist feminists. And we share those values and we talk about those values. But the whole time that this is happening, you're doing something that is entirely counteractive to it. So, really, I don't care what you're doing, but I care that you're presenting yourself as the opposite. If she had just said to me, hey, my life has changed a little bit, and this is how I feel about myself now, and this is what my life is going to be, I would have been like, you know what? Thanks for like being honest and sharing that with me. But that's not what happened.
oh, so she was even like being. See, that's interesting. If she was being secretive about it, because that's like
Oh,
she
completely.
knows that
Completely.
it's.
When she re-came out as bi to me a year ago, January of last year, I said, but like, okay, but like you're married to a woman, like you're a member of these organizations, like, and she said, well, I'm not going to participate in those organizations anymore because they're no longer for me because I'm not a lesbian. And I was like, okay, you know what? That's respectable.
Mm.
And then she said, and nothing's going to change. Like, I just want to... oh no. Okay. She said, I just want to be like total representation that the female exclusive, bisexual feminist, is a possibility for women, and you absolutely can choose women. And that's me. Yes, I'm attracted to men, but I'm not acting on it. I don't want to. I love my life. I love my wife. I love everything about my life, blah, blah, blah. And she just felt like she had to be honest with who she really is. And I said, that's great. Like, awesome. Come to find out 8 months later that,
That is
yeah.
so wild to me.
Oh,
I'm
me
a Christian
too.
there as well. Yeah, I'm hoping her wife is okay. Yeah, because again, like, yeah, that's an extra. Again, like, it would be sad. It would be like a big life change, but it would almost be like an inverse of those women who were like married to men for years and then realize
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
they're attracted to women and divorce and go for a woman. Like, fine, whatever. But yeah, that's so weird. Oh.
Yeah. And then yeah, once I found all this out, like I was understandably like, whoa. But again, I don't really care what you're doing. I just care what you're telling me and then not, like just be honest and that's fine. Anyway, so I found this out in August, and then um once I found it out, once she told me, she never spoke to me again. And finally, in mid October, I reached out being like, hey, this has been really weird and I miss you and our friendship.
Mm.
And she said, in so many words, I'm I'm sick of being judged for the sin of being bisexual and we're not friends anymore. And I was like, okay. And that was that. We haven't spoken since.
It sounds like, if anything, you're like, at worst, you're like, I'm concerned, because there's also, right, look, again, like psychoanalyzing, talking about too many different possibilities. But I think of like, okay, you really, really want to see what having sex with a man is like, and you're going to open your marriage to do that. But you're having hookups with 20 men? Like, do you know what I mean? Again, and oh, so weird. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So very strange. It was a very strange experience and a hurtful one. Like, this happened in October and I'm still sad and I miss her and I think about her all the time. And I see things online where I'm like, oh my God, like she would, like, this is so her. And I, like, there was even an incident the other day on TikTok where I saw a TikTok that was like her, and I tapped share and then I was like, oh, right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Friendship breakups.
Yeah. Friendship breakups. Super painful. I want the very best for her and her wife and their life together, and I hope everything is great and it stays great. I hope that all of this works for them, and it's like I genuinely do. But it's just, yeah, it's sad.
I also, yeah, I tend to feel, obviously it's very different, but I do tend to feel like people doing total 180s,
Mhm.
particularly when it comes to like, yeah, like adding in political opinions to that, not just like having this realization about your sexuality or something. I don't know. It's quite different in a lot of ways, but it makes me think of those like detrans people who go from like, you,
Yeah.
cult's a bit too extreme for a word for both, but like the cult of trans straight into the cult of like,
Mega.
yeah, MAGA, yeah, literally. And but the most healthy people I see are the people that sort of go for like just gentle. Oh, well, obviously I agree. You know, I can think of particularly a few G trans women who are like very hardline radical feminists now, who I agree with them a lot. But I think in terms of, for most D trans people, just a gentle, healthy stepping back
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
seem to be the people it works out best for.
Hmm.
Oh, she's pleased with herself. Yes, that's Claire. That's what I thought about this hypersexual form of self harm. That is the little question mark I have there.
No, I mean, I. The frustrating thing too is when I did reach out and whatever, and then she replied basically saying friends off. And then, of course, I replied to that. And we had like read receipts on where we can like see what when you've read the message. She did not read the message for a full 5 days and then didn't reply. So I was like, okay, well. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and like I say, I always find a 180 strange or concerning. Like I get, I don't know, almost compromising your values. Meh. But yeah, sort of doing something that seems out of character because you just want to experience all that life has to offer. I kind of get that, but yeah. Anyway, all very odd.
yeah, it really was. But I genuinely hope for the best for her and her wife and their life and future together. And I hope it works out for all involved completely because I would hate to see anything awful or painful to happen to either of them. So
Yeah.
that's it. But I agree with this. Like, it's open marriage stuff. Like, I don't know. This might be an area where I am conservative, but I think like marriage, like when you get married, like for me, I think marriage is it. Like that's the person you chose to tie your entire life to. You're married. You don't get to have other people. That's just my perspective. I know people do open marriages and stuff, but to me, I think open marriages tend to not usually end well. So I don't know.
You know, it's so funny because I hear enough about, well, I suppose swinging and an open marriage are slightly different things, but I hear enough about, like, I think for very particular people, that kind of, I guess, like the swinging lifestyle. I imagine it can work, but I think, I don't know. That's a weird word. I don't know. I'm so young. I'm so inexperienced in the realm of relationships. But yeah, I, I also just think, I don't know, because I've been on the receiving end of unicorn hunters quite as much as I have.
Oh yeah, me too.
I'm just a bit like, oh, that reminds me. I saw this someone tweeting about, like, someone was basically saying, oh, these like, stop blaming bisexual women for these straight women who are unicorn hunters. And someone was going, but they must be bisexual because why would they want to engage sexually with another woman if they weren't? And obviously I agree with that on the face of it, except for the fact that when I would speak to some of these unicorn hunting women,
Uh-huh.
look, this is cringe for me to admit, but I would be like, how about we met just to see how we get on?
Yeah. Never would they agree
And
to
then,
that.
yeah, and then they go, oh no, I don't find women attractive. And it's like, well, then I really don't want to hop into bed with you and your boyfriend, because if you're
Right.
not going to be fun,
But it's only
like,
about what
really,
the
what's the
boyfriend
point?
wants.
Exactly. Like, oh my god, alfalfa, don't talk to me about polyamory. My time in
I
the
know.
freaking queer underworld, like subculture, and all of the like weird. I'm gonna call it fake polyamory. I don't know.
Mm. Um, Also, when you talk about like the unicorn hunters, there and how yeah, it's always a male female couple wanting another female. They would like it's never seeking a male. Never. No boyfriend would ever agree to that.
I'm
Oy.
trying to think. I've seen it a couple times, but well, I don't know. I've got my spicy take about this. There's a seam of pseudo bisexual men out there that I've
Ooh, let's go.
got spicy opinions on. Right. Okay. So I'm going to be clear. I do think there genuinely are bisexual men.
Of course.
I'm not talking about those men. And I'll tell you how I can tell the difference. It's that those men have had, it might not have been a proper long term relationship, but they've had, I don't know, it feels like a mirror to what I've had with women, where it's been like real crushes, like real intense feelings, all of that. It just hasn't worked out or whatever. I think there are a seam of men that fetishize. It's very similar to actually the like idea of the AGP, like trans fetish, like wanting to be the woman, wanting to be submissive in bed, this kind of thing. So
Uh-huh.
I think that there are some men that end up having such a fetish for a whole variety of things, but I suppose the most obvious or most common thing being like their own degradation. They're also sexist, so they see being like the receiving partner as degradation towards them. I don't know. I think it's this thing where they will basically accept be like getting like rough treatment in bed from another man as a
Yeah.
form of fetish, as opposed to
Ah,
being attracted to that man. Like, it could be any man at all, as
right.
long as he's in that certain way. Because I have had the experience, again, way too much information, but of kind of meeting with women who I don't think were attracted to women. I think they watched so much porn, they kind of had a weird fetish for enacting tropes of lesbian porn.
Uh-huh.
Been with very large air quotes around it there.
Yep.
So I
Yeah,
think,
they're so like
oh,
they fetish masculinity to such a degree that they want to be like degraded by masculinity.
yes, yes, it's exactly that. It's like a fetish for wanting this kind of degradation. And I have found those men to be quite misogynist towards
Oh
me.
yeah.
So, and I think it's this, some women, I think it fits into that soft boy like stereotype. I think some women have their guard down because they go, oh, he's bisexual, he's probably better than a straight man. And no, he's not. And I think that particularly if he's one of these kind of guys with this like fetish for degradation, he will then enact that on you. And that's been my experience. Anyway, I just read something absolutely
Yeah.
crazy from Living Lux.
Oh, I know. Yes, she
Whoa, and
wrote.
G Strathmore is also spitting facts as well.
I was literally on a date at a bar with a man a few years back, and a woman came up to me while I was at the table and asked to kiss me. I told her I wasn't interested, and she said, "My boyfriend's right there." And he waved. She just kept asking to kiss me over and over. There's so many
God,
levels to this. First of
get
all, you
freaking
can't
him.
just go up
Because
to a stranger and be like, "Hey, can I kiss you?" Like, what the fuck?
That is crazy.
Second of
But again,
all,
it's the porn brain thing, isn't it? That's what they fucking do in a porn. That's what I'm getting. Right.
you said G. Strathmore was saying something?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I'll just chuck in my one little 2 cents there. I've had like long, steamy online interactions with women who then, when we're finally going to meet up, go, "Oh, by the way, my husband's going to be there."
Yeah, yeah, oh
Like,
yeah. I've been there too.
excuse me, miss.
And
What
my
the actual hell?
my dating, like when I was on the apps and stuff, like it explicitly says I am a lesbian. And I have had those exact same situations with women who be like, "Oh yeah, by the way, my boyfriend." And it's like,
It's crazy. See, at least I have respect for unicorn hunters who are upfront about what the deal is.
right.
I have
Yeah.
no problem. That's so mean. That's so sorry. Yeah, poly is a lifestyle. G. Strathmore. This is what G. Strathmore was saying. So again, this is why everyone needs to listen to Red Femme. They have a really good episode called something like "Why Polyamory Isn't Real."
Okay.
And they basically say that it's almost a way to avoid the real intimacy of a real relationship
I
because you spend all
100%
of your
agree.
time doing spreadsheets to work out who you're going to hang out with. And are we all aware of the Chris Fleming song? It's never who you want to be polyamorous that's polyamorous. Like this idea that it's basically people that find it hard to get one actual good, solid, strong relationship. So they kind of
Yes.
compromise by having several not very good ones. And again, I find it interesting because it is different than people who are like casually sleeping around with lots of
Uh-huh.
people. That's what they're off to do. It is this strange little thing of its own that just seems fake.
I agree. I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, so much of it is like that and or like a fear of genuine, real, intimate connection with another person. They have to like they can't handle that, and so they have to have a bunch of little relationships they can kind of keep at bay because they're never going to get truly intimately involved with one.
That does seem like a huge part of it. It's so funny because yeah, they basically say they've never heard of a polyamorous relationship actively working because like if it did, they'd have something to say of like, oh, boyfriend number one wouldn't take out the bins. So boyfriend number two said it wasn't his turn. Like, like that, like actual like relationship, like mundanities. And the closest I've seen to it working, and even then it stopped eventually, was I knew someone who had two long distance boyfriends.
Oh boy.
But and obviously that kind of worked because basically they were only about every now and again. So that's when she'd
Yeah.
see them. But like eventually she wanted to be more serious with one of them and the other one was getting jealous. I didn't quite know how it all shook out, but do you know what I mean? This thing of like it does yeah. I suppose that was just at least it seemed healthy. It seemed like it was coming from a more healthy place than I see a lot of. That's what I found sad as well when I was really seriously trying to get out there and date women, at least in the city I'm in, because it's got such a huge overlap with like queer as subculture and therefore the BDSM subculture. Like no one, everyone was like, "Oh, I want like a ethical non-monogamous kink
Yeah.
relationship." I'm like, "Well, I just want to go on a few dates with you and then maybe see if we want to be committed." Like
Right.
that's it's like we're just looking for such different things, and it seems like there's no getting away from it. At least on dating apps, I'm sure
Yeah.
if I,
Do you
hindsight
think
2020, I was looking in the wrong places, but
Do you think there's something to the idea, like the ethical non-monogamy stuff, is that we don't really have a culture anymore of dating? Like it's you're either in a relationship or you're not. Like there used to be a culture of you're seeing multiple people, you're going on dates with multiple people, but you're not like in a relationship. You were just dating. But that we don't have that anymore, and so now people go ethical non-monogamy instead because you can't just date. You have to be with someone and then ethically non-monogamous on the side.
I genuinely don't know because I would say my experience of dating was that I was out actively dating, and then after a few months, I was like, this one's going really well. I'll stick with this. Um, so I don't know, but it would be interesting to see, yeah, to chart trends on dating habits and ethical non non-monogamy and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah,
also, what do you think of the thing? Like, there's always been people who, you would hear whispers of an open relationship, and that was like, whoa, that's kind of weird. But now, like, every single dating app profile is ENM, ENM, ENM. It's like, I wonder what the change was or why.
I think it is, well, I've got various different theories depending on who precisely we're talking about. But I think there's a certain amount of young women say it because they think they won't get any dates otherwise.
Sure, yeah.
So it's almost like a pandering thing.
Of course,
Um,
they probably want a committed boyfriend, right?
mm.
Um, but most men don't want to do that, so they just go along with it.
And then on the sort of it, like the general like straight man side of it, I think that they are basically saying, "Oh, polyamorous," meaning I just want to sleep around, and it's hilarious because it almost shows that they know that it's wrong for them to just be sleeping around. Or like again, it's that thing of if you're just open about it, if you said, I'm it's also a slight political signaling actually, because if I think back about when I was on dating apps, some men would just be like, "Here for a good time, not a long time,"
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
what,
yeah.
and they mean exactly the same thing as the men saying ethically non-monogamous, but they're trying to signal that they're like a nice guy by saying ethically non-monogamous.
Right.
So
They're not one of those like sleep around weirdos. They're a nice good guy who's doing it
yeah,
ethically.
and it's
Ah,
like, oh no, but you're exactly the same as the
exactly the same.
exactly the same. Um,
Interesting.
that's my read on it anyway.
That's a good take. I buy it.
Yeah,
Interesting. Don't they have
again,
situationships now? Yes. I hate that
what
word.
does relationship mean? I don't even understand what that means.
It means that the girl is yearning for the boy to commit, but he never will. And so they're together, but they're not together. It's just a situation that she's like agreed to. Situationship is a romantic or sexual relationship that is non committed and undefined. They are more than friends, but less than committed romantic partners.
That like hurts my brain because that makes it sound like it's ongoing, and surely
It is. It's a relationship, but he gets to fuck whoever he wants because he's straight up told her that we're not in a relationship, except for they are.
yeah, it's the having your cake and eating it too bit that I don't like.
Exactly.
And I can, give the side eye to how prevalent like hookup culture is, but if you want to sleep around casually, it's the hypocrisy and honesty thing again, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like if you want to sleep around, say you're sleeping around and go sleep around. Don't tell me it's a situation like
Right.
don't say you're in a relation. Don't say you're with someone, but you're just seeing other people.
Yeah. Oh, progressive
Ooh,
polygamy.
alfalfa. Oh yeah, there's. I find the gender dynamics of who is staying at home whilst the other people go out on dates quite interesting.
Yeah. Do expand.
So, again, it seems very much from what I've seen. Again, maybe this is just like my age group or the people I'm around or whatever, but it does seem to be a fairly large amount of like a straight couple who are fairly new, like it's maybe like a few months into it, and they'll say, "Oh no, we'll stay open," but the woman isn't going on any dates and she doesn't really want to
Correct.
meet anyone else because she really
Right,
likes
because she
this
wants
guy.
him.
And exactly, and this guy's like using it as an excuse to go shagging about, and it's like, I don't like that you're doing both. Again, I'll side eye the shagging about either way, but if that's what you want to do, just be honest about it and don't like string this poor
Right.
girl along.
Right. Like, I think, okay, yeah, maybe it's a spicy, but I think when it comes to male female relationships, like, if a man is not from the get go willing, wanting, interested in being in a relationship with a woman, he's never ever going to come around and she's never ever going to get what she wants. But she will wait around forever in the hopes that he will, and it's just not ever going to happen.
I think you're so right because I was reading some stupid thing on Twitter the other day about it was something to do with like men getting upset at being told, like their wife saying, "Oh, I wouldn't have ever had a one night stand with you, but I love you and I want to marry you because you're so wonderful." So
Yeah.
men will kind of, hilariously, is that Madonna whore complex thing again, isn't it? The like men will kind of sort women into two buckets of
Yep.
like the pure
The
wonderful
women that
wife
are good for
material.
fucking and the women that are good for
Yep,
marrying.
precisely.
And they're
So,
never the
and
same.
you can't move, exactly, and you cannot move from one bucket to another. It's not
Oh,
possible.
exactly. Yep. Yeah, so for any male attracted women in the chat right now, if a man you're interested in is not straight away like willing to be in a committed relationship with you, he's never going to. He's never going to get it out of his system. He's never going to come around one day and decide, okay, now I'm ready to commit to only you. Unless that is how it is from the get go, it's not ever going to come around. That's what
This
I
is so
think.
alien to me because this is what I mean about feeling like, look, this is again too much information about myself, about feeling like I had male typical sexuality or whatever. This thing, and again, I don't know. I spoke about it on my YouTube ages ago about this thing of like if the world was how it would be if women were the default, um, like attitudes towards casual sex might be totally different.
Mm,
And this thing of like I feel like I've got like a higher libido than most women or whatever. So this thing,
yeah.
or like I was less willing to commit to anyone early on when I was dating. I don't know. It's so funny. But then I suppose the difference is I would be open about it, or I would be. I don't know. I don't really know. It's just one of those things that, again, it's just one of those classic things that I find doesn't compute with me. That I'm like, I would never be hanging around like that for a guy that clearly wasn't interested. I'd be upset, but I'd be like, all right, we'll buy then. Like,
Yep. I
ooh, the
agree.
shut up ring. Yeah, I've heard of
The
that.
shut up ring. Ugh. That's gross. Shut up ring. But again, like just I don't think that he's stopping his behavior.
No,
It's just like a farce.
yeah, it's so weird.
Really.
Oh, I listened to this. In fact, I was talking about podcast racks. There was this fascinating one. Oh, it's called something like "Is It a Cult?"
Okay.
Hmm. Let me find it. Let me find it because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. But basically, the point was they were talking about. They had an interview with this woman who was in the like UK BDSM scene. Um, and was just talking about how cult like it was.
Yeah, I don't doubt it at all.
Here we go. It was called "Was I in a Cult?" And it was just so
The answer is yes, usually.
yes, but it was just really interesting. Her like views on the situation, particularly what she said about, and I've seen these women too. Again, with that sort of part of the Venn diagram where like the queer subculture and the BDSM subculture crossover of
Mm,
like, I feel conflicted describing them in this way because I right, okay, we can talk about what a terrible misogynist I am once I've said this. So let me just get it out there and then we'll we'll dig into why I'm wrong. But like, the most conventionally beautiful, hyper feminine, like gorgeous young women who could get any date they want, kind of having such low self-esteem that they go for the BDSM scene and
yeah.
will also then accept like the worst treatment.
Yes. I don't think that's a
Um,
misogynist take at all.
no, I think what it is that even if she was the ugliest woman in the world, she still wouldn't deserve that treatment. But
Of
it's just
course.
interesting that the fact that these are very conventionally attractive women who, you know, wouldn't really have trouble finding a date with most like nicer men still
Yeah.
go for this because their self-esteem is so rock bottom. It's so interesting just to hear it firsthand from someone because it's like really um clarifies all these suspicions I've had from kind of being on the periphery of that world.
Mm, yeah, I think that's absolutely true.
And then if you want some further reading, find the Mumsnet thread where people who claim to know her in real life talk about how actually she's the wrong one. And this woman who's being interviewed in this podcast, actually, she was the one who actually got excommunicated because she's actually the problem. Which I don't think is true. I think the woman on the podcast was, she seems very thoughtful and basically going like, I know that I was engaging in BDSM because I was traumatized. I'm very open and thoughtful and introspective about it all, which is very admirable. Not only to just do that, but just then go talk so eloquently about it. But crazy.
Yeah. This is interesting from Claire. It's weird how drastically male behavior changes before and after they have intercourse. They'll go from kind and attentive to disgust and indifference. Can't imagine losing respect for someone just because I made it with them. Or post-nut clarity, they call it. Ugh.
Yeah, I've done that. Expired milk also is talking facts there.
Going off the chat, I'll chime in and say that the default should be staying away from men and placing more value on relationships, platonic or otherwise, with women. Yeah. Expired milk is a very committed, staunch separatist, and I love that about her.
It is. You're saying that thing about saying like, yeah, women who get into a relationship with a guy and then the rest of their social world ceases to exist. I find so strange. And again, maybe I'm just lucky with the circles that I run in, but like I could easily list to you like easily 10 women who I don't know anything about their relationships, or maybe I know they have a partner, but I don't really know anything about this person. And all I know about them is like the friendship I have with them and the art they make. And it's like, yeah, crazy making to know that, yeah, I don't know that's maybe not as common, but I think maybe that's why we've all found each other, because we are all that type of person. And you know what? You've just made me realize it's quite funny. Again, talking about, my mum has got a big wide circle of friends and all this, and my dad sort of doesn't. But I don't know, I also hear that's kind of a common thing of there being what do I mean? It almost being like throughout your life that like maybe in our 20s and early 30s in straight relationships, most women don't have outside friendships. And then into like 40s and 50s, it like swaps around and that men have less friends and women get more. Right. Maybe, I don't know.
I think that is a thing that a lot of like quote unquote older men don't have friends. Or their friends are just like the husbands of their wife's friends. But that's not like their friend.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a funny one.
It is. What are you doing with the rest of your week?
What am I doing with the rest of my week? I'm getting ready to go back to university next week.
Oh wow. You're not back yet.
No.
Oh great.
I've been sitting in my pants playing video games.
Yeah.
I'm meeting up with a friend off my course we got given like homework over Christmas that neither of us have done, so we're going to meet up and do that. And I've just got loads and loads of admin to do about like too many shows that I'm trying to run. It's going to be nice.
Sorry, I have to cough.
Please cough. And when you come back, tell me if you're spending the rest of your week with that adorable little dog.
I am. I'm dog sitting right now. She's a miniature Doberman Pinscher.
Oh, she's beautiful.
She's really cute. I'm off work today and tomorrow because I have to use up holiday hours. So I took today and tomorrow off. And then Friday I'm going to work for just a half day, admin day, which will be fine.
That's my favorite bit of the year, where they're like, no, you have to take time off.
That's me all the time. My boss is like, hello, you've got these hours. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So I'm doing that. I have to do some errands tomorrow. um, that's about it. On Saturday, so I bought my house 4 years ago, and every January, the real estate agency I used, they do a client appreciation thing where they rent out an entire movie theater complex.
What?
Yeah. So, and then their clients get an invite. Even though this was 4 years ago, I still get the invite. So, their clients get the invite to come, and you can see whatever movie you want for completely free. So, I'm doing that on Saturday.
That sounds so fun.
I know.
Do
Yeah,
you
it's a
know what
class.
film?
I'm gonna see what they're playing right now. It's not like the mainstream movie theater. Um, it's like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a ma and pa shop type independent theater. Jesus.
Best cinemas.
Yeah, so they do get like all of like the big name movies, but not for like weeks until after they've been released. And then they also play like other titles. Like right now, they're doing a Lord of the Rings event where they're playing all of the Lord of the
Oh,
Rings films, that kind of thing.
oh,
So
love
on
a bit of
Saturday,
cinema.
they're playing. Oh, they're playing Toy Story on Saturday.
Oh, cute.
That actually seems really cute. Yeah, they're playing a bunch of films. Most of them I've actually never heard of, but it's fine.
You've got the new Nosferatu.
Oh, yeah, I wish they had that one. They don't. Have you seen it?
I have.
Okay, I would like to see it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
I would just this is me. Everyone said she was amazing at acting, but maybe I'm just horrible. I don't think the main lady was very good at acting.
Who is it? Nosferatu.
What turns out it's Johnny Depp's daughter, which I didn't realize
Oh,
until her
Lily
name
Rose.
came up in the. And like she can like waft about in a nightie looking haunted like very well, but as soon as she has any scenes where she just has to deliver normal
Act.
lines, like act, it all goes downhill. And it's like when you're playing opposite Willem Dafoe
Remarkable
and Emma
actor.
Corrin, I can have my opinions about Emma Corrin's gender feels, but
Yeah,
good at
yeah.
like, oh, it's just cringe.
Yeah, even
And
gender people are good at stuff too. Like,
I think I got a bit upset at like, it's funny because I can take the film for what it is and quite like it on the tension, the way it's blocked, is that the word? Like the choreography of the actors and the camera in space with each other. There's like mirrors. So like someone will walk across the screen and the camera will pan and then you'll see a glimpse of someone in the mirror. It's really good. So like just beautiful. But all these people going, oh, it's so empowering towards the female character. And I mean,
really?
it's based on a really, really old film. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's like, it's the
Yeah.
least empowering ending you could possibly have gone for.
Oh no. Oh, that's crazy. I'm just looking now. The director is Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, which is a wonderful
Yeah,
film in my opinion.
I love The Witch. I love The
So
Lighthouse.
much.
I was lukewarm on The Northman.
Haven't seen those two.
The Lighthouse is
Willem Dafoe as well.
yeah. Again,
Ooh.
talking this idea of like taking inspiration from men when women don't get to make films like that.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I want to make like the female version of The Lighthouse.
Interesting.
Alfalfa, tell me about it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'll have to see it.
Yeah, it is good. And I can totally take it for what it was. And actually, maybe I'll do a video about it, talking like viewing it through a feminist lens, because I think it's very tragic and very horrible, but there is some interesting. I mean, it's vampire stuff. It's obvious, like
Yeah.
the ship to like sex and sexuality. So
Yeah, extremely that's gonna
yeah,
be there.
there's some really obvious like parallels with like sexual abuse and stuff that's really compelling and good. I don't know, bad. It's not bad, but I think people calling it empowering for this main character are just
Yeah. I always want to ask people, like, what do you think empowering means?
God.
Like, I would just love to know when people say that whatever is in this film is empowering, or sex work is empowering, or makeup is empowering. Like, what does that mean? What does that word mean?
So I've just seen Claire saying the female version of the lighthouse is Grey Gardens. I
Oh
think
my God. That
dear
is
Jesus.
iconic. That is iconic. Oh my
Oh.
God. Are you a little Edie or a big Edie?
Oh my God. No, but also, yeah, empowering. Don't get me started on Poor Things, but if anyone saw Poor Things and then heard people saying,
Oh,
but it's
I
so
haven't
empowering.
I have not seen it, but I know the premise, and it to me is horrifying, nowhere near close to empowering.
Well, this is the thing. If a feminist with a way with words had taken that story,
Hmm.
it could have been an unbelievable film, like amazing, but tragic, but
Yeah.
amazing. But the whole
Ugh.
point, basically, the thing
Ugh.
that gave me mental breakdown is that I related to her in certain ways. This thing of being this like wide-eyed optimist, like just like full of like I don't know, love and like sexual urges, just wanting to like throw it out there at the world, and then receiving this like heart-stopping reality of like
Ugh.
the pit of hate that can be certain, like a lot of men's sexuality.
Yes.
And but so the whole point is she's objectified by everyone, even people who are kind to her objectify her, and
Yeah.
that's fine and that's interesting. But then there comes a point where it doesn't um a- add up, and you realize that the people that wrote the film objectify her and she's just an object to them as well, and then it's horrible. Like,
Ugh.
God, you can't humanize this woman. And the bit that got me is that, spoiler alert everybody, she ends up in a brothel, and
Huh.
this is a woman who she follows her sexual urges immediately, and she loves having really pleasurable sex to her, and that is such a big motivator to her. That's a choice. We can discuss whether that's a good choice or not, but that's the choice. And she is convinced in about 10 seconds to endure sex that is shown to be uncomfortable for her in this film.
Mhm.
And it's like that doesn't make sense for her character. Why would she do that when all she's wanted is to chase pleasure? This doesn't make sense. Like, and it was just really upsetting and horrible to me that like yeah, I literally I've never had such a violent reaction to a film. I sat down on a bench outside the cinema and cried.
Mhm.
It really got to me in a way that I like didn't expect. Just
Ugh. That's awful. That's horrible.
expired milk. Yeah, don't watch Poor Things. Yeah, again, that's it. Again, like all this stuff. Yeah, I don't know. All this stuff of like, oh, she's meant to be this wild, free woman. It's like, well, who exactly is shaving her armpits every morning? Like all this sort of stuff. Like, ay, ay, ay. Anyway, Nosferatu, less hateful, I would say.
Well, that's good.
It's very atmospheric. You need to just, yeah, I just
I do
don't go
want to
in
see it.
expecting it to be empowering. It was really good.
Good. Good director. So.
Yeah. Alfalfa.
This generation is cooked. Indeed. I was reading some stuff the other day about, actually it was on Reddit, and it was like in the teachers subreddit, and someone was asking like, is this generation actually cooked? And like so many of the responses were so heartbreaking. Like I read one response that a teacher was saying like her high school students, so ages like 15 to 18, like they can't conceptualize math at all. Like they can memorize 5 times 3. They can memorize that. But she said they cannot understand what is being asked when the problem is a nickel is worth 5 cents. How much money do you have when you have 30 nickels? Like they cannot, she said they have no idea what is
Oh
being
my
asked.
god.
It's baffling, hey? And that and that they've all been like super, like they think it's like witchcraft that she can like multiply in her head, and that scared me.
You've just reminded me of a hilarious chat I've had with some of my classmates. I asked one, I think she must be like 18, 19. I said, "Oh, I've heard that like my age group is one of the few age groups that's like computer literate just from growing up with computers, and
Right.
they're a bit older and they didn't grow up with computers, and a bit younger and you grew up with phones, so you aren't
Yeah.
used to computers." And she said, "Oh no, no, I find using computers really, really fine. It's just difficult things that I find difficult, like moving files around." And
Oh.
I just went, "Oh, okay."
Oh
And
boy.
like smiled at her because I just didn't know how to be like, that's exactly what I meant.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I have heard that the younger, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, have no idea how to actually use a computer, which is interesting and baffling.
Yeah.
Also, some of the responses in this thread were things like um, junior and high school aged teenagers have very poor literacy and that they can't actually read, they just memorize the shape of words.
I've heard no, because I'm so interested because apparently in America, like specifically like the USA, there was so in the UK we do phonics,
Yeah,
which I
same.
assume is like standard, and they went through a little phase of doing whole word memorization and working out
Mhm.
missing words by context, not by sounding them out. And apparently it's
Correct.
like a bunch of kids, but haven't they gone back? Have they? Maybe not.
I don't know, but yeah, the
Mm.
responses were saying things like, yeah, they don't know how to sound a word out. And if it's a word they haven't visually seen with their eyeballs before, they have no idea what it is because they have not memorized that shape of that word. Like
That's crazy.
they know, and further, like say bed, B-E-D versus bad, B-A-D, they might be slightly confused about because the shape of the word is very much the same.
Okay, because I was going to say that again, odd things about my upbringing. I could read before I went to school,
Me too.
and um, my favorite story about this is that apparently I would ask my dad. I'd like point at everything and be like, "What does that say? What does that say?"
Yeah.
And eventually, I pointed at something, and he just went, "You know what that says?" And I went, "Oh yeah," and said it was like park or stop, like some kind of sign. But
Yeah.
yeah, this thing of like I clearly learned how to read by the shape of letters, but I
Mhm.
couldn't do sounding out for ages when I went to school because of that. I
Mhm.
don't, yeah.
It's
Oh yeah, the
interesting.
COVID stuff I find interesting because my partner works in primary schools, and it sounds like now the 4-year-olds are normal again.
Ah,
New
and I was just gonna say that
4-year-olds
kind of
feral.
I think that tracks because my goddaughter is 5 and in kindergarten, this is her first year, and I mean, we're in Canada, not America proper. She can like and knows how to sound out letters. Like, is she reading? Not really, but if you ask her like, what does this sound out the letters? She can go ka a t cat, you know?
Mhm.
And so maybe that tracks that like the 4 or 5 year olds are kind of normal now, which I hope is true.
I hope so.
Me too.
Yeah, ballistic thing about the phones thing. That is it. That apparently, yeah, because
Yeah.
phones you don't have to move files around. You don't. You. It's both nice because it's so like obviously everything's right there and easy to use, but it also means you don't have to understand the back end of it. And I think about this with a lot of things. Like I don't know. I always get really panicked about us. Oh my god. Okay, I've just noticed the time. I can't get into this. I'm so sorry. But basically, that I worry
Yeah, we
about
can
us
wrap
heading
up
into an
shortly.
intellectual dark age. Because it's all on our phones, so no one's learned anything, and then no one's going to teach me how to play the piano because it's all just on a phone, and now no one can play the piano anymore. And
Mm.
that'll happen for everything and every form of art and most forms of like computing and science and maths.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, it's getting late for you, hey?
Yes,
Um,
I've got to be up bright and breezy to do some welding.
ooh. Okay, well, yeah, I'm okay to wrap this up. So I have some housekeeping items.
Oh.
So let me, how the heck do I? Hmm. Aha, okay, so there's a Discord server if anyone is interested in joining it. It's not mine, so I am not the owner, but it is for women who are radical feminist, rad leaning, or rad learning. It's women only. The link to join it will be in the description box of this video. So feel free. Just FYI, you'll have to do a voice call with a moderator to verify that you are a woman slash girl. And then on Friday, I will be streaming with Rusty and Nana. And I realize here I put Nana. Oops. But yeah, Friday, Rusty, Nana, and I will be doing another IMLA, International Mean Lesbian Alliance. Uh,
Yes.
we've got a doozy of a topic for y'all. It's going to be insane and funny.
I want to draw like a picture of you all as like the justice.
Very cute. So that's going to be on Friday at the usual evening time, or maybe slightly earlier. Normally we stream at 6 my time, but this time we'll be doing 5, so an hour earlier than normal. And then yeah, if I can be so cringe YouTuberish to ask for likes and comments, that's always the best thing for a creator. Helps your channel in the algorithm.
Comment.
So yeah, subscribe to Joan's channel. The link will be in the description box as well. Joan makes videos. And Joan, thank you for coming on with me and doing this essay with me and having such wonderful insight and smart things to say. It's always a joy to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. It's always a joy to talk to you, and it is so nice
Oh,
to get to I don't know, like yap away about these topics.
yeah,
I
love
don't
it.
get the chance often,
Yeah.
so it's so fun.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks to all of the people in the chat. I really appreciate you all as well. So many insightful and wonderful women always come to the chat, and so it's wonderful to have you all as well. And enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week. And I, with Rusty and Nena, will be back on Friday evening.
Yay.
All right. Thanks. And goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.